Hey there, I'm Ashley Gaynor, and I want to welcome you to my Skip the Niche Masterclass. I'm so excited you're here because now I get to pull back the curtain and show you how real freelance writers build successful businesses without niching down and leaving piles of money on the table. Now, to get started, I have some bad news and some good news for you. The bad news is everything you've ever been taught about picking a freelance writing niche is wrong. I know you've heard the advice that you have to choose a niche before you get started because that's the only way to make money. The riches are in the niches, that you have to niche or die, and that only specialists and experts make money. There are tons of writing experts out there who are going around telling everybody that you absolutely must choose a freelance writing niche or else you won't succeed, that you'll be stuck with crummy clients, making low rates, struggling for basically the rest of your life. And I'm assuming that you have heard this advice too. Well, here's that good news that I promised. Those experts are wrong. You don't have to pick a freelance writing niche, and I am living proof that generalists can and do make great money with freelance writing. Now, I want to preface the rest of this little chat here that we're having by saying that yes, having a profitable writing niche is a good thing. And yes, you can skyrocket your income when you become an expert or specialist in a particular service or niche, but only if you do it right. There are some people whose ideal writing niche is completely obvious. Maybe there's some previous professional experience, maybe a degree or two, or whatever it is. If you've been a banker for a while and you go into the finance writing niche, then that's awesome and good for you. However, that is not the story for the vast majority of us. The vast majority of us have to find our way. It's impossible to pick the absolute all-time home run winning writing niche at the very beginning. How on earth are you supposed to know what your specialty should be when you haven't actually done anything yet, right? I'm guessing you felt that frustration. I know tons of my students have, and that's why I'm here now, to show you that you aren't necessarily as stuck as you think you are. Now, fact, according to the Small Business Administration, which is a federal agency here in the U.S., there are 30.2 million small businesses just in the U.S., and that actually only accounts for 99.9% of all businesses, so there are actually a few more. So why am I telling you this? Because every single one of those 30 million businesses needs copy. Copy is just a fancy industry term for words. Copy is the stuff that you write. Words on a website are copy. Words in a Facebook post are copy. Words in an advertisement are copy. Words in an email are copy. You get the idea. Words equal copy. Now, I might be missing something, but I have tried really hard to come up with businesses that need 0 words anywhere for anything. If you can think of any, then send me an email and let me know. But we're going to just move forward under the assumption that all of these 30 million businesses need copy. That, my friend, is a lot of businesses. And what that means for you is that is a lot of opportunity. Now, it goes without saying that some of these businesses are going to have someone on staff who does their writing. And some of them are going to be one of those situations where they don't really need a ton of copy. So it's like the owner stays up late one night and busts out a crummy website, and that's all that they do for 5 years. But the vast majority of these 30 million businesses aren't in either of those situations. Millions of businesses in the U.S. are outsourcing their writing, where they would be if they knew it was an option. And do you think that every single one of those businesses is out there looking for an expert specialist in some tiny sliver of a niche? No, they are not. Many of them are not even aware that that's a thing. And as we see a rise in freelancing and contract work, with business staff shrinking, marketing departments being cut, and contractors being relied on more and more, the opportunity for freelance writing is only going to explode in the coming years. In fact, the Freelancers Union is telling us that more than half of the workforce in the U.S. will be freelance by 2027. That's not very far away. And this means that you are in the right place. Now, I do want to pause here and reiterate that yes, having a niche is a great thing. It's not a bad thing. There are many businesses out there, especially in the B2B arena, where a lot of the big paychecks can be found. These guys do want specialists. And yes, if you're able to burrow down into ghostwriting thought leadership blog posts for HR executives, then you are going to have higher rates than you might as a generalist. So the advice that you hear a lot regarding niches is correct in a sense, but, and I want to be very big and loud about this, that advice that you have to have a niche is incomplete. People who are all shouty out there about needing a niche fail to mention the part where they spent a whole bunch of time figuring out the right niche for themselves. And they are telling you to do something in like 5 minutes that it took them like 5 months to figure out. If and when you can start to niche down, you probably will see greater returns, yes. But picking a niche is, for the vast majority of us, a process. It takes months, if not years, to find the right niche, depending on how much you're working, and it is not something that you can expect to be able to do right there on the spot. So what you're doing in those months or years before you find your highly profitable niche is freelancing as a generalist. You're taking anything and everything that is acceptable to you, and you are learning not only how to become a better writer and a better freelancer, but you're learning about the types of assignments that you like, the types of clients that you prefer, and the things that you do not want to do ever again. For a great many of us, most of us, but not all of us, we need that time. We need that experience in that kind of wandering and gathering all of that input, doing this generalist work before we could possibly pick a niche and hope to get any real satisfaction from it. So we go through this journey from, the starting point is this even a thing that can happen, to feeling like we're ready to do a little bit of client work. We start to take anything we can find. Maybe then we add some filters. We become a little bit pickier about what we'll accept. And then we begin to start making deliberate decisions about the who and the what that we're doing, which is how you start working your way into that sweet spot. You hang out there in that sweet spot in your niche, you're commanding higher and higher rates, and then sometimes that sweet spot stops becoming so sweet, and you begin to explore other options instead. But the point that I want to make here is that it is a journey. It's a process. It takes some time. It's something that you only get through by going through it, not by sitting around doing a bunch of analysis of stuff that you don't actually know anything about yet. This journey to the niche is how a huge majority of the writers I know have found their way into those profitable niches. And yes, it does work, but eventually it takes time, it takes experience, and you'll only get there when you've put in the time and gathered the experience. In fact, that's how my entire career has gone. I officially started freelancing in January of 2010, so I've been doing this for about 10 years now. Now, back then when I got started, there weren't very many people out there talking about how to freelance online, so I just sort of made it up as I went along. I networked in forums, I talked to people I knew in real life, I left comments on people's blogs like everyone was saying to do. I applied for jobs on job board sites like Media Bistro. I did all that stuff. After a few months of doing random work for welding companies and food bloggers and self-published authors and web design agencies and stuff like that, I decided that I had a niche and I wanted to go full bore into editing as my niche. Now, most of the editing work that I wanted to do was academic editing. I worked for a few self-published authors from time to time during that period, as well as randomly I picked up this boutique management consulting company and things like that. But I was committed to this niche of editing, and so editing is what I did the most of. Until one day I decided that I hated it and I didn't want to edit anymore. So I pivoted hard into writing and I never looked back. Sort of. By now, it was 2014, years had passed, and there were people talking about freelancing online. I began to see people doing what I was trying to do. Most of these people, as it turned out, were unattached with no kids. They had complete autonomy over their schedules. But I was a single mom with a 2-year-old at home with me, so their advice really ended up not working very well. But still, I knew there was hope. And I kept plugging away. So I picked up all kinds of random writing work that I could find through my connections, through pitching businesses directly, and by hitting up those job boards. I did a little bit of just about everything there is to do in this universe. And eventually I niched into blog posts. I changed my expert industry a few times, and then I decided that I was actually kind of tired of blog posts, so I started looking for other types of writing work. I wrote Amazon book descriptions. I wrote for an insole company, doing all of their web and email copy. I started offering to write emails, ebooks, and even a course for my different blogging clients. Then I moved into the sales funnel world and started learning about things like sales pages and direct response copy. Eventually, I was approached to write a book. And I claimed books as my niche because it's what works really well for my life and my specific work experience at this point in time. So basically, ghostwriting books is the only service I offer now, but it's not the only service I actually provide. Now, I'll explain how that works in a few minutes. So looking back over my story, what happened? I started off having a good time and finding all kinds of interesting work. And then I did what the experts said I should do, and I chose a niche service. Eventually, after months and really years of struggle, I realized that the niche I'd chosen was the issue, so I punted it. I scrapped conventional wisdom and decided to take anything and everything that paid well enough to merit my attention. And that, my friends, is when things finally started happening for me. Once I broke out of that jail cell of that first chosen niche, and I gave myself the freedom to do anything that actually worked for me, I was then able to figure out what I really enjoyed and where my strengths were. I worked out the services I liked, the services I dreaded, and the services that just didn't pay well enough. I also developed a better sense of the types of clients I wanted to keep and the ones that I wanted to avoid. It really was a true journey, and it took years. And it was almost like my niche found me, but only after I put myself out there to be found. And in that, my story is like the vast majority of other writers out there. I maybe took a little bit longer. But your niche finds you, and it finds you eventually. It is rarely the other way around where you decide your ideal niche and then you go for it. No, that's not how it usually works. You go, and then over months or maybe years, you figure it out like a process of elimination. And then eventually you may find that a new niche is calling you, but you'll only be able to figure any of this stuff out if you give yourself permission to try everything and see how it goes. If you start paying closer attention to the other experts out there, you'll notice how their stories kind of tend to be the same. I wanted to get into writing, I wandered around for a little bit, and eventually I found my place. So that brings us back to today. My goal for the rest of this presentation is to show you these things. Why most, if not all, new freelance writers should not have a niche. Why being a generalist is actually better for your business. What to say with clients who ask, but can you do this other thing too? For work that you've never done before. How to figure out what to charge and how to do the actual writing bit, especially if it's the first time for you, and what to do when someone asks you for your rate and you don't know what you should tell them yet, but you also don't want to panic or feel dumb. We are all about avoiding that around here. So listen, I know how frustrating it is to hear people tell you over and over again about how you aren't doing it right and you need to change your approach and how you can't really start until you have XYZ thing in place, or you have to wait until you have all this supposedly critical stuff figured out and done before you can begin, when there's really no way for you to figure it out until you're actually out there looking for the work. It feels like the chicken and egg cycle a lot of times. I can't start writing until I have a niche, but how do I find a niche if I can't start writing? There are a lot of places to get stuck in freelance writing, and you will get stuck every single time you hit one of those places if you never give yourself permission to go for it. So this is your official permission to get started right now, to forget the niche and just go for it. Yes, what I'm telling you flies in the face of tons of expert advice out there, but I promise you that it works, and I am about to show you how. Today, I'm going to show you 3 frameworks for freelance writing success that you can use without having a niche. The first is my Copy DNA framework, the subversive methodology that bucks conventional wisdom about niches and paves the way for more money and less angst as a freelance writer. The second is the format framework, which will show you how to say yes confidently to any project or inquiry and then deliver great work every time, even if you've never had that type of gig before. And the third is the proposal framework, which is how you will sidestep the most stressful question that a prospect can ask and then turn it around so that you look like a seasoned professional and you can really stick the landing. So first, let's talk about why bucking the conventional wisdom about choosing a niche is the real secret to more money and less angst. I've said before that countless writers, including the ones who talk about niching, started out with no niche. I was one of them. You may have already come across others if you're not completely new to the scene. And if you are completely new to the scene, by the way, I would like to welcome you. And I'm very glad to be the one to show you the ropes. Now, I don't say any of this to throw rocks at these experts. They are great people and they have lots of good advice. Some of them are even personal friends of mine. But what I want you to realize is that the advice that they're all putting out there about how you have to have a niche if you want to make any money is factually incorrect. Or perhaps more precisely, as I said before, it's incomplete. Yes, you do want a niche eventually, but eventually is not today. All that niche advice does apply eventually, but in the meantime, you need to be a generalist. Going out there, finding all the work that you can, and doing it is how you find your profitable, enjoyable, life-giving niche. For the vast majority of us, the niche is not something you can figure out before you start working. Maybe you have some clues based on professional experience and whatnot. Maybe you have a completely obvious niche laid out for you. There's been one writer I've ever known who just dove straight into a niche. She was a CPA in her previous career, and in her transition to writing, she went straight into the financial services niche, and as far as I know, she has never looked back. The vast majority of us, however, do a bit of wandering. We'll get into what that looks like in real life when we get to the second framework, but first I need to show you the methodology behind the wandering. There is a method to the madness. It's just that nobody has called it out the way that I'm about to, or if they have, I have not seen it. So after years of writing all kinds of things for clients and studying the other writing formats that drew my interest, I realized something. Good copy all has the same DNA. It all has the same overall blueprint. There is a framework to all copy, no matter what you're writing. And what makes this framework so critical for you, the generalist writer, to understand is this. Writing well is a skill that transfers across formats. The thing that determines whether or not you'll be able to write something well isn't necessarily your expertise in that subject or your experience writing in a specific format. It comes down to your ability to write well. Because, and this is important, if you can grasp the framework and you can apply your writing skills, then you can do a pretty good job of writing just about anything, even on the first go. Possible exception might be books. You actually do need to be pretty well developed as a writer and editor to do books. But I digress. What is this framework that I'm talking about? I have it on the slide here for you, and let's take a look. I've identified 5 core elements of good writing, whether it's an Instagram caption, a blog post, a sales page, or really anything else. Number 1, there must be a hook. This is the thing that grabs the reader's attention and gets them reading. Number 2, there must be a story of some sort, even if it's minuscule and implied. Number 3, there must be a logical order that the reader can follow to the end. In other words, it has to make sense. Number 4, there must be an intended outcome you're steering toward, whether it's toward a call to action, a key takeaway, or even just a punchline. There's always some response that you're trying to evoke. And if there's not, then what's the point? What are we even doing? And number 5, there must be a rhythm. Some say it sings, some call it flow. Whatever you call it, you know that thing I'm talking about where it just feels right. When you understand the framework and how it works, you begin to realize that the different elements of all the different copy assignments out there aren't so different after all. So here's what this means in terms of freelance writing. If you can write a great headline, you can also write a great title for a blog post and a great subject line for an email. Once you master the skill in one arena, all you need to figure out is the subtle adjustments in structure or approach to make for the next type of format. But because you're a writer, you already have the innate ability to deconstruct these different formats and pick up on those nuances so that you can recreate them. That is what a good writer can do. Similarly, if you can get really good at identifying the hook in the story that you want to tell, then you can make anything attention-grabbing. Whether it's the first line of a Facebook ad, the opener of a blog post, or the top section of a sales page, you already know how to do what's in front of you. The next part of the copy DNA framework is the logical order. If you can write a solid 500-word blog post, then you can write a long-form blog post, 2,000 words or more. And if you can write a long-form blog post, then you can write a white paper, which goes up to 7 or 9 pages. Once you understand how to create logical structure out of a bunch of information, you can apply that sensibility to just about anything. Your primary new task is teasing out the structure itself that you are applying. And once you can do that, you can write anything. The 4th part of the framework is the intended outcome. Every single thing that you write should have an intended outcome for the reader. Never write just to say stuff. We're not interested in word vomit. You need to write to spur the reader towards some new action or understanding. Sometimes this action is to click, sometimes it's to buy, sometimes it is simply to become a better person in one specific facet of life. Great writers understand how to write toward that intended outcome, always keeping the reader and the reader's place in mind. And finally, great writing sings. It's smooth. It doesn't cause you to stumble over the words or have to go back and reread something. There's no wait, what moment. With great writing, there is a flow to it, and it must be present in everything that you write. So if you're able to get your writing to sing in a social media post, then you can get it to sing in a blog post, in a newsletter article, and in a grant proposal. It's really important that the grant proposals sing. It's not about how much you know about a subject, although excellent research is necessary. Instead, it's about how you are able to present information using language that is easy to take in. That is what great writing is. I just want to reiterate that writing skills are the most important thing you can have as a freelance writer, not subject matter expertise. You can research any topic, but what gives you the ability to write about it effectively isn't necessarily your research, it's your ability to write. It's your ability to use that research. And that's why I'm telling you to buck the conventional wisdom about having a subject matter expertise and digging into a niche, and instead open yourself up to writing anything about anything, because that gives you more options and more money, and your writing skills, not the niche, are the true path to greater success. There is a huge world of opportunity out there if you're willing to go and get it. Remember, 30 million businesses. So don't let yourself stay stuck at the starting line because you don't feel like you have permission to move without a niche. Permission granted. Go. Figure it out along the way. The rest of this masterclass will help you with that. Just plant your flag, decide to fight for it, and go. Now, the next thing that comes up for most of us is, but Ashley, how do I make sure I have the right skills to go out there and do all this new and exciting work when I have no idea how to actually do all this new and exciting work? When you really take in my advice about focusing on writing skills and using the Copy DNA framework to apply your existing skills to new writing formats, you may feel some conflicting feelings. On the one hand, it can be a huge relief to have permission to skip the niche and just get out there without having every single thing perfectly figured out first. And on the other hand, all the fears and insecurities you have about your ability to quote unquote make it might get a little triggered. Here's why. That concept of a niche can give you a sense of security. All the big promises out there about writing success are about how when you find your niche, the path is laid with gold, right? So all you have to do is find that niche and then everything is going to work out beautifully and money will be flowing into your pockets, or so they say. But when you punt the idea of a perfect niche on day one, that false sense of security is stripped away. Maybe you even feel like you're more stuck because the world just got 10 times bigger and now you really have no idea where to begin. Plus, there's that whole thing where you've lost your primary excuse for not getting started yet, and you are confronted with the reality that now is the actual time to start. And that can be really intimidating because starting is the hardest part. For a lot of people, it is easier to wait and get stuck in getting ready to get ready. But if you don't have to get ready anymore and you just have to start, then everything is on the line. And that can be really difficult. I really totally get that. So here's what I recommend you do. Take a deep breath, assess your commitment to freelance writing, and remind yourself why you wanted to do this in the first place. And then put yourself out there. Find any work that you can, say yes, as long as it passes muster, and then figure it out as you go. Yes, even if the work that you drum up is something you've never done before, and you're only vaguely familiar with it in concept. The good news is you already have the tools that you need. It's just time to get resourceful so you can apply them. In the Copy DNA framework, I showed you that if you can write one thing well, you can write anything well once you know the structure and you've done the subject matter research. Here's more good news. Anything and everything there is to learn on this earth is available on Google. Now, in all seriousness, you do need to become resourceful. But of course, I have good news for you. There is a framework that you can use for that. So when you've said yes to the opportunity to write something you've never written before, I recommend you take this framework I'm about to give you and you filter everything through it. So here's how it works. First, you find 3 to 5 examples of what you're doing and you review them. You might want to print them off if they're on the longer side so you can mark them up. I have always found that to be really helpful. Then you run them through my 3-part copy structure framework. This gives you the guidance to figure out the nature of any type of copy format. So part 1 of the framework is the visual structure, and the elements include the typical length or word count, how images are used, how the text is broken up, meaning with graphics or subheads or spacing, and how the headline is handled. Does it have its own page? Is it bare? Is it super long? Is it super short? How does the headline look? Part 2 is to look at the core content elements. These include: where can you identify how story is used? Whose stories are incorporated? What pronouns or perspectives are used? Is it written in the first or second or third person? What background information is included and where in the copy is it presented? What problems are presented and how are they presented? What key desire is presented and how is it angled? Approximately how many words are devoted to each of these different elements? And what can you discern about the intended reader? Meaning, what level of experience, authority, or background knowledge does this copy assume that they have? Is the reader a beginner? Are they an expert? Are they an expert in a different arena, but they have oversight over this area? What can you kind of tease out about them? And then part 3 is to look for any direct response elements. So these might include how are headlines formatted and what are the basic headline templates that you can identify? Where are the hooks? Is there just one in the beginning or are there hooks throughout? How are loops opened and closed? What is the pain or the problem that's being agitated? What are the desires that are being teased or painted? At what point in the copy is the solution presented and how is that solution presented? And finally, is there a call to action? How is that presented? And if so, where? Once you can get a sense of how this type of writing format piece is structured, then you can replicate that structure using your own writing and research skills. You can sketch out a rough outline or a template to use, and once you've collected the research that you need to do, you've gathered the information, maybe you've even done interviews, and you have all of that stuff, then you'll know how to write it because you already have the writing skills. You had the writing skills and then you got the input and the data that you needed. And now because you are a writer, you can bring the two together. You can come up with the hook. You can weave in the story. You can guide the reader to the intended conclusions because you already know how to do that simply by being a good writer. This copy shares the same DNA with all the other types of writing out there that you know how to do, so do not discount your ability to basically turn information into good writing. You have everything you need. You already are capable. So that's the secret to being a generalist. You find examples of this writing format and you study them. But how do you find those examples in the first place? Well, I'm about to tell you how I've always done it. Sometimes they're really easy to find just by looking for examples on Google or one of my other favorite search engines, Pinterest. You search terms like white paper examples or webinar registration page template or email sequence template. Words like example, sample, template, even roundup tend to get me good results. I'll also do a search for how to write a fill in the blank and see what comes up. Sometimes there's really helpful stuff. A lot of times there's not, but sometimes you do find things that are helpful. If I'm having trouble finding decent examples from the past, maybe 6 to 12 months, you want something recent so you know what's current, then it's time to dig a little deeper. If I can find a template, that's great. But if I can find a template and some examples, that's even better. One of my favorite ways to find examples of a specific writing format is to go to LinkedIn, search for a copywriter who specializes in that format, and check out their profile. Sometimes they will upload portfolio pieces directly to LinkedIn, and sometimes I can go to their website and find portfolio pieces there. It's really helpful. Sometimes if I'm really stuck, I'll go to AWAI's website. It's awaionline.com. I'll search their archives for courses or articles on that specific writing type or that specific format. And then I look at the names of the people whose programs AWAI is promoting. Then I go find those people's websites and I look for samples and anything else that they're putting out there that might help me. Another thing you might do is look for books on the subject. I have bought books specifically on sales pages, on SEO writing, on case studies, and just tons of copywriting books in general. So they have always been helpful for me. So that is how I find my samples, and I've never had to do more than that. Now, here's a little warning for you. As you start doing this and you start evaluating other writers' samples, you'll probably think to yourself, I could totally do one of these. And that's awesome. However, don't be surprised if you read some of these samples and you realize that they are actually not that well written. The cry of the frustrated freelancer, I could write way better than that. The cold, hard truth is that there are people out there who are not as good as you, who are getting paid more than you are because they are out there and you are not. You will almost certainly find evidence of this once you start looking around. So you need to decide right now to interpret that as further proof that you're going to be great and not as any reason to quit trying. The downside to choosing a niche is that you go into a client relationship only willing to do that one type of thing. So if the client wants you to do more, or if they want to refer you to a contact they have in a different niche or anything like that, and you say no because you have locked yourself into this niche and you're not going to break out of it because the experts say that that is going to spell doom, then what you've done is leave money right there sitting on the table. You have said no to more money that somebody wants to give you. Generally speaking, this is not something I advocate. Now, again, when you are a specialist in one type of thing, it might make sense to turn down work that's outside the scope of what you do, but that is something that only makes sense in some very limited cases. For most of us, saying yes to anything is the right thing to do. This is actually a major principle that I followed in my own career, and now I'm teaching my students the same. Does it seem simple? Yes, it is. The catch is that this principle requires you to be willing to stretch and to trust yourself. When you say yes to a challenge, like a new form of writing or a new type of client, what you're saying yes to is growth. You are growing your business by taking on this additional project. You are growing your income by taking on this additional work. You are growing your skill set by committing to learn how to do this new type of writing. You are also growing your mindset by opening yourself up to new opportunities instead of hiding behind limitations. Oh, I couldn't possibly do that because of this and this and this excuse, pretending to be a valid reason. Every time a client asked me if I could do a different type of writing, even if I'd never done it before, I had to decide if the proposed work was something I could figure out and deliver with some degree of confidence. I'll admit that there were a few times when I specifically turned down a request to write a sales page because I doubted my ability to do one well. Eventually, I decided I wanted to stop saying no to sales pages because I got that request often enough and because I knew that they could make a lot of money. So I watched a webinar on how to write a sales page, and then I bought a book about writing sales pages, and after that, I felt good about saying yes. Now, looking back, I'm glad I finally took that initiative and got resourceful, but I'm also really irritated at myself that it took me so long. I passed up literally thousands of dollars worth of work because I was intimidated, and all it took was a webinar and a $12 book to get over the hump. Don't be like me. Take the initiative and say yes. Give yourself enough time to figure out what you're doing, run the copy structure framework, trust your innate writing abilities, and go for it. And speaking of giving yourself time to figure it out and then going for it, let's transition into the third framework I want to show you today for sidestepping that on the spot, so how much is this going to cost question, and turning it into an opportunity to wow your prospect. What we've covered up to this point is more about mindset and perspective with a little bit of tactics thrown in, but what I'm suggesting here is a very specific tool, and it's something that I've used with a lot of success in my business, both formally and informally. I'm calling this the research and respond framework. What I do when someone asks me how much something is going to cost and I don't really have a good idea of the rate off the top of my head is I will basically say, let me research it and respond as soon as possible. Because I tend to be approachable and casual in my style rather than super formal with my writing clients, this often sounds like me saying, let me do some math and I'll send you a proposal. I can have it to you by the end of the week. Something like that. You will come up with your own way to say that you will research and respond, but that's what I typically say. When you say something like this, you've done a few things. You have removed the pressure and the awkwardness of, I don't know what to say, and feeling stupid. You will have given yourself the opportunity to charge a fair rate and not just the first guess that comes into your head. You'll have bought yourself some time to research what all this project will entail, which lets you better estimate the time it'll take you. You will set expectations with the prospect that you're in charge, that you have a say in how this goes. And you're also going to look super duper professional and experienced, and you're going to feel amazing about that. So how does this framework actually work? Let's take a peek behind the curtain. The client asks, and you say, I'll run some numbers and send you a proposal by the end of the day tomorrow. See? Research and respond. Then you do the dance of joy and or the dance of panic because yay, a client. And then you go online and you post in my Facebook group looking for rates and tips, and maybe you're kind of freaking out a little bit. And then you do some Googling to see what you can figure out for yourself about appropriate writing rates for this type of thing. And it's really frustrating because it's just across the board, right? Maybe you've done this before. So then you head over to your proposal template and you start filling it out. You make sure to include details about the project, getting clear about what the client expects and what you will deliver. You will define the scope, you'll set the time frame for delivery, and you'll get very clear that this time frame only applies if they get you the stuff that you need by X date. This is not a perpetual, unending proposal. There are deadlines. including a deadline to accept and a deadline to get your stuff to me. Okay, so then you get to the part about how much everything is going to cost. You type in the number that you've come up with unflinchingly because you have already researched this and you know theoretically that this is the right number, even if it feels terrifying. Strip the emotion out and just type it. And then, when applicable, you can suggest some helpful add-ons and how much they would cost. So, for example, if you're writing blog posts, you can suggest adding on an announcement email to their email list, sharing the new post. That's just an add-on. You might even get fancy with packages if you're feeling fancy, but that is way beyond the scope of today's masterclass. So in this proposal, you will also need to set expectations about how and when you can be reached, where to send the info that you need and when, and stuff like that, kind of how I work type stuff. What I really love about proposals is that they help me get clear on what is going on, really define the project, and they give me a chance to speak directly to the prospect and demonstrate that I understand what they are looking for and what they hope to get out of me. This is something that can be harder to convey in a conversation right on the spot, although conversations tend to be very helpful as well. But when your prospect has a written proposal in hand, it feels a lot more personalized and it gives them a much stronger sense of emotional investment. Someone took the time to fill out this 3-page document for me. I first started using this formal proposal system with advice from my mentor, Julie Stoyan, who's a digital marketer. It used to be, before Julie got her hands on me, that I would just say to someone, let me work out the details, I'll do some math, and I'll send you an email with the final quote. And I would do that kind of like a mini proposal in an email or like a really informal short proposal. And I had pretty good results with that. But when I started using a formal written proposal, I realized how much more impressive it is. And now it's my go-to for hammering out any kind of new client arrangement. Once I started sending these proposals out, I started getting even better responses. It was amazing. So instead of a, yep, that sounds great, or thanks so much, but I'll need to keep looking, I started getting messages like, I just had to pick my jaw up off the floor. I love this proposal, which is a real message I got from somebody. And I love what you've written here, but I just don't have the budget for all of this. Is there something else we can work out? What happened was that the people who were ready to work with me were even happier that they had found me, and the people who couldn't afford me were looking for ways to try to work with me even still because they wanted to so badly. That's not to say that I landed every single gig that involved one of these proposals, because I didn't, but my success rate increased by about 15%. Not bad, not bad. So why do I love this idea of researching and responding with your rates so much more than making something up on the spot, or worse, leaving someone hanging while you do some frantic math? Because it takes the pressure off and gives you the space to work out something that is fair to you. When you get put on the spot, it's really hard to think fast and come up with an accurate rate, unless it's maybe for something that you've done a bunch of times and you can quote it pretty easily. But no, instead, say no, take charge of the conversation, and by leading the way with your client, you are doing both parties a favor. So many new writers and other service providers, not just writers, feel like they need to be able to provide numbers immediately, right on the spot, right off the top of their heads. But the reality is that true professionals most of the time actually do not do this. That's a false pressure that we apply because we simply don't know any better. But now you know better, and you can start doing better, and you can relieve that pressure on yourself that doesn't need to be there. You do not have to give a rate right there on the spot. If a client pushes you for one, then maybe you can do some ballpark napkin math, give them a really wide range of what it might cost. But in general, most people are satisfied waiting for a proposal. So that, my friends, is the research and respond framework. And pretty cool stuff, right? Yeah, it really made a huge difference for my business. So here is the big question. If there is a way that you could confidently say yes to any writing assignment that came your way without worrying about having a niche or an expertise yet, because you knew that you're a strong, resourceful writer and that you could come across as a professional every step of the way, would you be into it? Because if so, this is the part where I tell you that I wish I could give you all the information in the world about all of these things I've shown you today. And it's true. I really wish I could, because these are some of the major turning points in my own business and for my students as well. But the reality is that I can't spend all day hanging out. My voice box is going to collapse, and you probably don't have that much time either. So I put together something for those of you who want to go deeper and broader with your writing business. It's called Copy Confidential, and it has everything you need to become a confident copywriter, able to impress prospects and wow your clients, even if you feel like you're a beginner. Copy Confidential is a 16-module course that covers the fundamentals of copywriting and content writing, and then delves into the specific frameworks of a dozen different writing assignments that you can do for clients. Now, I call it a 16-module course, but it's not exactly a 16-module course. It's more like a 3-module course with a vault. So the first 3 modules will help you develop and sharpen your writing skills, and then the other 13 modules cover the frameworks for 13 different writing assignments that you can do for clients. These are the methodologies that we were talking about earlier, where you go out and you get all the writing samples and you figure out all the different pieces, parts of everything, and you make your own templates, and then you dump all your information into the templates. I've done that for you with this course. I had 3 goals in mind when I developed Copy Confidential. The first was to help you develop your writing skills and become a solid, confident, well-rounded writer. The second was to give you the frameworks for all the different types of writing projects that might come your way. No more turning down work because you feel like you don't know what you're doing. And the third is to strengthen your positioning as a generalist who understands not only what your clients need, but how to deliver consistently. When I sat down to work out this writing course idea, I wanted it to be different from all the courses I bought and all the ones I decided not to buy because they weren't what I wanted. This is not a one-shot thing. This is not something you go through once and you're done with. I want you to have everything that you need to make it as a freelance writer. And if I'm telling you to be a generalist, I want to equip you to be a well-rounded generalist. And that's why it covers so many different writing formats. But I want to give you a closer look inside, so let's take a peek. So inside Copy Confidential, again, there are 16 modules. The first 3 focus on writing skills, and then all the rest are more like a reference library of project-specific training. The expectation is that you work through the first 3 modules, and then you refer to the other 13 as needed. Inside the first 3 modules, we're going to cover copywriting, content writing, and what I've broken out and called general writing skills. These 3 modules form your writing foundation. This is where you learn how to be an even better writer in general. So in these modules, I'll show you how and why it's important to develop your writing ability more than it is to develop a subject matter expertise at this point in your career. I'll show you how one specific copy skill can translate into other types of copy, like the thing with the headlines and the email subject lines and the blog post titles, and how if you can do one, you can do all 3. We are going to look exactly at how that works with examples and breakdowns and practice exercises. I'm also going to give you my rules of good writing. These are things that apply no matter what you're working on, whether it's for a conversion piece or sales or simply for entertainment. The copywriting module will take you deeper into what qualifies as copywriting and what people mean when they say that, and it will show you the fundamental aspects of good copy. We're going to talk about conversion and how to write for it, persuasion and how to do it ethically, like the good person that I know that you are, and copywriting specific writing and editing techniques that set direct response copywriting apart from just about everything else. In the content module, I'll show you how content is different from copywriting, how the great content writers can quote unquote bring copywriting into their content without everything turning into a sales letter, and how to write with the end in mind. This is how you learn to be engaging and effective with your content writing. And a bonus, when you've got sharp copywriting and content skills, you can put together some amazing pitches and marketing copy for yourself to land better work and get noticed by people who are looking for good writers. So it will not only build your skills, it will also build your marketing abilities just as a side effect. So want to see what's in the framework section? Okay, great. Here is what we will cover. If I missed anything and you would like to see something, let me know. We are talking about sales pages, funnel copy, emails and sequences, product descriptions, landing pages and opt-ins, podcast show notes, blog posts, courses and lessons, web content, white papers, case studies, books and ebooks, and scripts, meaning specifically VSL and webinar scripts, things like that, maybe some Facebook ad scripts. So here's the thing. The number one way I see my writers undercut themselves is to say that they're not qualified before they even try. Copywriting seems too mysterious. Sales pages seem too complicated. White papers seem too long. I did this to myself for years. Thousands of dollars left on the table because I was too afraid to figure it out. Maybe you've turned down work because you felt like you weren't capable of doing it. With Copy Confidential, I want you to be able to silence that inner voice that says you aren't qualified and never turn down good work again. You're way more qualified than you realize, and this course will not only show you that, it'll help you grow even more. I'm saying the value for Copy Confidential is $19.97, meaning that that's what I could go out and sell it for if I really wanted to. But anyone who's seen any of my presentations before knows that the final asking price is not this high. So hang with me through the bonuses and let's see what's cooking in here. So that's Copy Confidential itself, but I know you have a lot more questions and I've got a lot of extras to help you with those. So the next thing I want to show you is what I'm calling project foundations. Every project needs a solid foundation if you have any hope of doing it well, and that's what this bonus training will do for you. You'll come away knowing what information you need and what questions to ask to make sure that you get that information from your clients. This is the part where we define the scope and also do a little bit of covering our own rear ends. I will also help you set yourself up for success with scripts and suggestions and client questionnaires out the wazoo. The things I'm showing you in this training are things that I had to learn the hard way over the course of years. One of the hardest things to get right is the scope of the project. The more you do, the more it gets easier to define the scope because you get a feel for everything that you'll need for a project. But you can benefit from my years in the trenches and have a more solid foundation today without working it out for yourself from scratch. It will also be helpful for those of you who are on client calls and you're not quite sure what to do, but more on that in a second. So we've got the Copy Confidential course and the Project Foundations training, but I'm not done yet. Remember, I just sort of teased that whole client call thing? Yeah, I'm adding a bonus specifically about client calls just for you. Now, not every project needs a client call. Many projects can be worked out pretty simply over email, but you'll probably run into clients who want to get on the phone with you, and I recommend that you do it when you are asked to. It really helps to build rapport and to build that personal connection, which then makes it easier for your prospects to feel like they can trust you. It takes just a little bit of practice and maybe some guidance to be able to pull off a great client call, and that is where Client Call Confidential comes in. In this little bonus training, I'm showing you what to say, how to say it, in what order, and how to follow up. We're also going to go over the basic outline of a client call, which is really going to simplify the whole process for you. Then I will give you specific scripts about what to say and how to talk about your work, especially if you have tricky questions coming at you. But it's one thing to watch a training on client calls, and it's a completely different thing to experience them for yourself. That's why I'm also planning out some mock client calls for anyone who enrolls in Copy Confidential. I will pretend to be a prospective client who's interested in hiring you. We will do the call, and then we'll go back and look at your answers, and then I'll offer some suggestions for what to say next time. These are completely optional, but really effective, fully recorded. You can refer to them, and you can refer to the vault of other client calls. Does that sound awesome? Maybe a little bit terrifying? Trust me, it's going to be great. But of course, we are not done yet. There's more. I want to give you my workload management tools. I've been doing this freelance writing thing for a long time, more than 10 years, in fact. And in those 10 plus years, I've had a divorce, a cross-country move, multiple in-town moves, another wedding, a local parent with a health crisis, vacations, international travel. I've given birth to 3 kids. There's another one coming. All kinds of stuff that has gone on that has pulled me away from my business. So how have I managed to get all my work done and still have a real life? That is what my workload management training will show you. It's 1 part energy management, 1 part time management, 1 part planning, and 1 part smart business. It is the real answer to questions like, how do I find the time? And what happens if something comes up? And how do I make sure I don't have too many deadlines? This workload management training will give you the tools you need to design your freelance writing business in a way that supports your life instead of taking it over and making you miserable. So let's review. We have Copy Confidential valued at $19.97. We have the Project Foundations training valued at $197. We have the client calls with the scripts and the templates and the practice if you want to do the practice, valued at $197. The workload management training, I'm calling it at $97. This next bonus is something I'm really excited about. When I first got started, I literally had to figure everything out for myself, and it was really hard and it took forever. It wasn't until I found a mentor who basically said, look, here's your path. This is what you should be doing, that I began to get some traction. And now that my business looks a lot different than it did back then, I once again didn't find traction until I had someone show me the different paths I could take to get to my goals, and then I could figure out the right one for me. So that's why I'm doing this interview series with other freelance writers. In it, I'm asking all kinds of writers how they got started and what their own paths to success looked like. Everyone has a different definition of success, and that's true in this interview series as well. Plus, this is something I'll be adding to frequently over time as I meet more writers and have more chances to talk to people. So it's going to keep growing with more paths to success for you to see, and you will identify yourself in these writer stories. My goal for you is to see that there are many paths to success and that different people can do different things. There is no one right way, despite what you've been told. Okay, so we're almost done, but not quite. So you're going to be opening yourself up to all this work, rocking these client calls, managing your time like a boss, learning from the writers around you. But before all of that can get on a roll, you need to know what to charge, right? That's like the number one question. What do I charge? The search term, how much do I charge for writing, got 284 million hits on Google when I checked it a few minutes ago. And that is not even asking about specific projects either. It's just how much do I charge for writing? So when you start asking Google about specifics, your head is going to spin because you're going to have so many different and often very unhelpful answers. That's why I'm putting together my rate guide. It's going to cover what to charge the first time you do something and how much and how frequently to increase that rate. I'll tell you the standard rates for projects, and then I'll give you the realistic stepping stones to get there if you find that those rates are too scary high. I've been there. I totally get it. I will also tell you the bare minimum that you should charge. Trust me on that one. Don't go below what I tell you. Plus, I will guide you through the freelancer math to put together package rates and to navigate other kind of rate-ish situations. This pricing guide is not a flat, once and done bunch of number vomit. It is a dynamic guide that helps you identify realistically where you are on the rate spectrum, and then it shows you how and when to increase your rates, by what increments and how frequently. It's designed to help you grow your business. Who knew a rate guide could do that? Okay, so here's what we've got so far. We've got Copy Confidential valued at $19.97, the Project Foundations valued at $197, Client Calls valued at $197, Workload Management for $97, the Interview Series I'm putting at $97, and then the Pricing Guide, $97, because it's such a dynamic tool. I'm just so proud of this thing. But we are not quite done yet. We are almost done, but not quite. The last bonus I want to show you right now is my editing tip sheet. One thing I don't talk about very much is that I do a lot of editing work still, in addition to writing. In fact, if you remember, editing was one of the niches I tried to force myself into, and it took a lot of misery and struggle before I was willing to let it go, because I decided I had my niche. It was my profitable niche. I was doing everything right. Right? Wrong. So I've got a lot of editing under my belt, and in this bonus tip sheet, I'm giving you my most effective tips for editing your own work. Hiring a proofreader is always an option, and there are several people in my Facebook group who offer this service fairly inexpensively, but it is not always something that you're going to want to do. If you just want to be able to edit your own stuff and do it really effectively and then send it on to your client, then these editing tips are going to help you. Editing does require work, but it does not necessarily require special knowledge. You can do some great editing even if punctuation is hard for you. The reality is that the cleaner and smoother your copy is, the happier your clients will be. Your goal is to make them as happy as possible, and editing is an important step in that process. So, ta-da! I jokingly titled this slide the Copy Confidential Mega Bundle, but really we're going to call it Copy Confidential. So here's what you get. Copy Confidential, the course with the writing skills and the reference library for 13 different types of writing projects. Project Foundation, so you can start every project off on the right foot. Client Call Confidence, so you can manage those client calls like a champ. The Workload Management training to keep your business from ruining your life. Freelancer Interview Series, so you can see all the many paths to success and not feel like such a loser and get lots and lots of inspiration about what you could be doing next. My special pricing guide that helps you figure out what to charge every time, no matter where you are on the spectrum. And my editing tip sheet, so you can get all of your copy cleaned up and ready to send to your clients. Total value for all this stuff is $2,826. But I'm not done yet. There is one more thing that I'm adding. I actually was not going to include this. The plan all along was not to include this, but as it got closer and closer to the time to put this offer out there for you to see it, I knew that I needed to add this in and not make it a separate expense for you, because it answers the single biggest questions my writers have, and so I want you to have it in your toolbox too. So for anyone who enrolls in Copy Confidential, I'm also giving away my course on finding freelance writing clients. Client Bound is the name of it. Client Bound is a marketing course for freelance writers. So in other words, I teach you how to find writing clients. I teach you how to market yourself. You've got all these skills that you're bringing to the table, plus the ones that you're going to pick up from Copy Confidential, and now it's time to get paid to use them. In Client Bound, you'll get the 5 core strategies that successful freelance writers use these days to find writing clients. These are all things that you can do from day one. You do not have to be established and proven or anything like that for them to work. The lessons in Client Bound include step-by-step walkthroughs, actionable advice, and examples of what to do and sometimes what not to do with commentary. Plus, because this is an entirely separate freestanding course that sells on its own, there are bonuses that go with it. So here's a quick rundown. The first bonus is about contracts. So we're going to go over when to send a contract, what to include, alternatives to consider like proposals, and more. Plus, there is an attorney-reviewed contract template for you to use. The second bonus is a swipe file of a bunch of proposals that I have sent to my own clients. These are real proposals that landed me thousands and thousands of dollars of work. We talk about sending proposal in this presentation, and these are some real examples for you to see and model, not copy, but model for your own business. The third bonus is my client onboarding process, which will help you manage expectations and get all your bases covered. Plus, you're going to look like a seasoned pro, which will help you feel a lot more confident and build momentum for yourself. The final bonus for Client Bound is an A to Z workflow, which takes you through the process of onboarding, doing the work, and then wrapping it all up. We are talking about draft deliveries, handling revision requests, managing invoices, and all that stuff that happens after the deadline. The goal with all of these bonuses is to position you as an absolute pleasure to hire, which is a critical factor in clients coming back to you and sending referrals your way. Plus, listen up because this is important. If you are already a Client Bound student, I'm offering a partial rebate when you join Copy Confidential. So if you paid in full to join Client Bound, then you qualify for a 50% rebate. And if you join with a payment plan, then you will get back one of your payments or we will cancel your final payment. There is a lesson in the course dashboard about how to get this rebate, and it's a pretty simple process. The only catch here is that you have to submit it. The total market value for Client Bound is $13.85, but currently it sells for $147. So with Copy Confidential giving you all the sweet writing skills, and with Client Bound giving you all the know-how to find the clients out there who need to hire you, then you've got the total package and you will be unstoppable. That is my goal here, to make you unstoppable. Okay, so let's review. You get the Copy Confidential course, all of the additional trainings, the pricing guide, the tip sheet, the student-only Facebook group that I haven't even mentioned yet, and free access to Client Bound with all of those bonuses included as well. The total value for all of this is $4,211. Now, a quick question. If all this total bomb package of writing and finding clients was equip you to build a writing business that brought in $2,000, $5,000, even $8,000 a month or more, would a one-time payment of $4,211 be worth it? If you could come out the other end of this equipped with rock star writing skills and solid marketing knowledge to land great clients and charge higher and higher rates faster than you thought possible, do you think it would be worth it? Well, basic math suggested it would be worth it, but when faced with more basic math, I had 2 choices. Price this course as low as possible so that as many could get into it as possible, sacrifice the quality, remove my presence, and basically leave you on your own to fend for yourself. Or I could go with a higher price tag so I could truly come alongside you, give you lots of attention, answer your questions as you go, and basically spoil you as much as I possibly can. So heads up, I'm not charging the full $4,200 value, not even close. But I did need to keep the price high enough to justify the amount of my personal time that I'm pouring into my students every day. I have just one more question for you. How much would it be worth to have highly marketable writing skills, a thriving business that is flexible and lucrative, it works with the life that you want to live, and an open door to any of the millions of awesome clients out there looking for someone like you? I know you must love these questions so much, so I'm not going to tease you anymore. Today, all of this can be yours for just $7.97. What? Yes, I will have to take it up more in the coming months, but for now, I'm throwing the doors open for $7.97. I'm only able to do this because some of the bonuses are not quite ready for you yet, but once those bonuses are finished, enrollment is going to go up. Now, I want to pause for a second and really let this sink in. It's human nature to get the adrenaline rush and the serotonin hits and whatever is going on in your brain when there is an amazing offer laid out. But let's get out of the emotion and into the thinking part of the brain. Picture yourself 6 months from now. You've been writing for clients, you've been practicing your craft, you're becoming more and more of a writing expert. Every new client that comes in the door means higher rates and greater profitability for you. If you haven't found your sweet spot yet, then you're getting closer and closer to it. Maybe you are in it already. Totally possible. Now, in that place in the future, when everything is trucking along, you've got great traction and you're feeling really good about where things are. Imagine how glad you are that you started this path today. Because the reality is that you will never get there if you don't start today. So to make it even easier for you to get started, I decided to offer a guarantee on the enrollment fees. Later this year, when the course is up to its full price at $9.97, I will not be offering refunds at all on Copy Confidential. But because I'm still building out some of the bonuses, I am going to sneak this little guarantee in the back door. So if at any point in the 3 days following your enrollment, you decide that this isn't for you, I will refund your full purchase price. 3 days, no exception, full refund. I used to call this my no questions guarantee, but I realized that I did want to be able to ask you what you had hoped it would deliver that it didn't, and that's a question, so maybe we can call it my one question guarantee. But regardless, it is a no pressure, no hassle guarantee with a full refund as long as you slip it in within 72 hours of enrollment. Now here's the thing. I only want people enrolling who are committed. If you're coming into this thinking, well, I can always refund if it doesn't work out, then please don't enroll. There is no course out there in existence that will take you from wishy-washy to successful, and I'd rather you just close out this window and save both of us the hassle. But if you are ready and you are sure that leveling up as a freelance writer is what you want to do, and you are here for the skills training, for the client finding, and for the incredible vault of frameworks and resources to carry you along your way as quickly as possible, then this is for you. And the 3-day window is here just to give you a little bit of security of knowing that you can back out if you get in there and realize that it's totally wrong. So I hope that sounds good to you. Let us review. Here is everything you get if you enroll today at $7.97. Or, yes, by the way, we have a payment plan. The payment plan is $297 for 3 months, or the extended payment plan is $149 for 6 months. Please note, my payment plan people, that we do not honor payment plan cancellations after that 3-day window guarantee is closed. The full refund policy is available on the checkout page for you to see, but in short, I need you to be aware that there are no cancellations on payment plans after 3 days. So we do have those payment plan options, or you can save about 10% on your enrollment by paying in full upfront. Either way, I am so excited to have you in the fold. Okay, so we're about to end this masterclass, and now you've got 2 choices in front of you. You can take the leap and enroll today, get all this great training, those fast action bonuses, and maybe even a surprise or 2. Set yourself up for confidence and success with all that cool swagger and momentum and whatnot. Or you can do nothing. You can change nothing. You can go back to how things were yesterday. Doing nothing means risking nothing and paying nothing, but it also means getting nothing. It's a pretty simple choice. Both options are valid, and the choice is yours. But if you're ready to say yes to change and join me and your fellow students in this course that I am just so freaking excited about, here is what I want you to do. Go to copyconfidential.com, click the button, and enroll. If you've hung with me for this long, I want to thank you for your time and for your attention. I know it can be hard to make time to show up for presentations like these, and I hope that this was truly helpful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me anytime, Ashley@ashleygainer.com. I also have a free Facebook group, which you can find by going to ashleygainer.com/Facebook, or you can hop over to the Book of Faces itself and search for the Inkwell Guild. You can also slide into my DMs on Instagram if you are so inclined at ashley.gainer. Wherever you like to hang out online, let's connect. And in the meantime, I wish you all the best.